That is Darcy. And this is my space where I like to talk about knitting and making within the fiber arts. So if this is your first time here, a big welcome. Thank you for checking the channel out. And of course, welcome back to all of the returning viewers. I know that I have some new faces here, so I am just so pleased to have everybody with me to have a little chat today. If you want to find me on social media, I will leave that information here on the screen for you and down in the description box, where you will also find show notes and links to things that I am talking about today. So I hope that everybody is doing well. I feel like it's been a while since I sat down and chatted with you guys about what I have been working on. If you saw the last video, then you'll know that was a little bit of a special one. I did a collaboration with Kat of the Knit Cat Paddywhack podcast, Lexi of Lexi Knits, and Naomi, of course, who is my sister. She's the yarn curator. We kind of came up with something that we call the Great Stitch Switch, where we each send each other some patterns and yeah, just tried to change it up a little bit. So I knit this hat, which was the hunter beanie. Kat sent me this pattern. It was a complete surprise and it was a lot of fun to work on, but each of us decided to also give away a copy of a pattern of the 4 of the winner's choosing. So I just thought that I would go ahead and announce the winner here up front, and I used a random comment generator here for YouTube, and the winner is Vivanne Lo. So congratulations, Vivian. If you'll get in touch with me, either send me a private message on Instagram or through Ravelry, or even just drop a comment down here and we can work something out to get you the pattern of your choosing. So again, thank you to everybody who is new here, who, you know, found the channel through that. I really appreciate having you guys around, and I hope that you'll stick around for more shenanigans. So I guess we'll just move right along on into some finished objects, and I finished my Weekender. So yes, this is the Weekender by Andrea Mowry, and I knit mine out of Brooklyn Tweed Shelter in the Foothills colorway. This is probably my favorite colorway by them. It's kind of a mixture of like yellow and gray and green. It's just a really pretty kind of neutral color. So I did go down a needle size on all of the recommended needles for the pattern. I think there were 3 needle sizes that you needed altogether. And I still wound up with a fair amount of ease. When I knit the sleeves, by the time I had finished all the decreases, I was already, you know, fairly long sleeves. And I just did like an inch of ribbing before I decided to bind off. I did do the tubular bind off everywhere that it called for. And I think my opinion on tubular bind off is slightly changing. It does look really nice. I still don't know if it's worth all the fuss, but I like it on this. I might try it on some other things in the future. And speaking of bind offs, thank you to everybody who mentioned some stretchy bind offs for me to try on my last kind of show and tell episode. I have 3 or 4 of them to try now in the future when I'm knitting socks. But anyway, I'm getting off track here. Yes, I'll pop some footage on the screen of me wearing my Weekender so you can see what it looks like in full length. I do have plenty of positive ease in this, probably about 6 inches of positive ease. I'm okay with that. It is kind of a boxy, oversized design. I'm really pleased with the fit, and I've really just been living in it for the past week and a half since I finished this. The nice thing about the Brooklyn Tweed is that, to me at least, it is next to skin soft, so I'm not even wearing any kind of undershirt or anything, and it's just a really enjoyable garment to wear. So this is going to be my submission to Christy Glass's Show Me Your Rhinebeck sweater video that she's doing for this year. I just finished filming a little clip for that. It's not the sweater that I originally envisioned, but that's okay. I'm still really pleased with how this turned out, and it's something that I foresee myself getting a lot of wear out of. I really enjoyed working with this yarn and this colorway. So I think that is it as far as everything I want to say about my Weekender. I do have another finished object to share with you guys. So this is still a little bit damp because I blocked it today, but last night I finished this cute little shawl for my niece for her birthday. I don't even think I had cast this on the last time I talked to you guys. So I think this is called the Easy Knit Lace Shawl or something. I don't know. I'll put the name of the pattern on the screen. It is a free pattern that I found on Ravelry. And as the name suggests, it is just a really basic kind of lace and stockinette shawl. It's kind of what I was thinking for my little 6 going on 26-year-old niece. She requested kind of a tealy green and a bright purple, so I thought that this colorway was perfect. This is one of the colorways that I dye up called Mermaid's Hair. This is a worsted weight base that's 100% merino, superwash merino, and yeah, I'm really pleased with how this turned out. Now I will say it's a free pattern, so I'm not going to knock it too much. However, I have one or two things to say. Also, don't judge me. I haven't sewn it my ends yet. But first of all, there's no like edging to prevent any curling. So I don't know how this is gonna, you know, wind up wearing in the end. Again, it's for a kid, so I'm not super worried about it. My second kind of raise of an eyebrow at this pattern is the lace. It kind of annoys me that the lace, like this lace goes straight up and then this one is at an angle. Is it really that hard to make lace kind of mirror each other? I don't think that it is. I'm not a big lace knitter, so I don't know, but like I feel like that's something that could be easily remedied somehow. I don't know. If you're a lace knitter, let me know down below. And then at the bottom here, I'm just, the way that this point is a little wonky. Granted, I didn't pin it when I was blocking it earlier, so I might need to pin it when I lay it back out. But it just doesn't, that center spine doesn't seem to stay in the center, if that makes sense. I don't know. I have a feeling that my niece is not going to really care. So I'm happy enough with it. It is what it is. Again, it was a free pattern, so hey, beggars can't be choosers, right? So while her birthday is not until November, I figured they are going to be passing through the area next week, and I figured I'd go ahead and get this knocked out and gifted to her. And the next thing that I'm going to show you guys is something that I don't think I've shared in knit up form, at least. I think that I showed you guys the skein after I had finished spinning it up. So originally I had kind of planned on making a standalone video about the spin to the sock knitting process, because this is about my hand spun socks here. But I've kind of fallen off the wagon of doing any filming for that, mostly because I knit these up super quick. I am almost done with the second sock. I'm just about ready to start the toe on this one. So yeah, I figured I would just go ahead and kind of talk about that here with you guys today. So this is some yarn that I spun up from a braid from Wound Up Fiber Arts, and she has some really gorgeous braids. Most of them are superwash or superwash nylon, so they're great for spinning up socks, or sock yarn I should say. And this is kind of what I have left. I had kind of thought I would have a little more than this left over when I was initially knitting the first sock, but it looks like I'll use up a good fair amount of this. Now I spun up a traditional 3-ply here, a short forward worsted spin, and it is a 75-25 superwash merino nylon blend. So it should be strong enough to hold up as socks over time. And I wound up coming up with about a sport weight here once I applied all of these together. So I was aiming for a fingering weight, but that is some really thin spinning, especially for me, who I only have about a year's worth of spinning experience under my belt. But I'm really pleased with the weight that I came up with here. And yeah, the colors just played together beautifully. I didn't really have a plan when I broke up the braid. I just kind of stripped it down. I just kind of made three long strips of the braid, and then the first two I spun pretty much end to end going across the top. So then the last one I did kind of break up into kind of repeating sections, so it's kind of fractal-esque. I don't know if I would call it a true fractal spin, but overall I'm extremely pleased with how these are turning out. The braid pretty much went from like the more purpley stuff at the top into the more greeny sections at the bottom. So they are most definitely sisters and not twins, but that is okay. That is kind of what I wanted. I didn't want a perfect pair of socks. And I have to say, this one, when I tried it on when I was done, it's just the most comfortable thing in the world. I have already ordered one or two more braids of some superwash nylon blend to spin myself up some more sock yarn. Now, since this is a sport weight, I am doing these on slightly larger needles than what I normally use. These are 1.5 and they're 2.5 millimeter needles. So they're slightly larger than the size ones that I normally do. I normally do a 72 stitch sock. So I knew that with this being sport weight, I would need to go up a little bit. And I don't remember, I might have just kind of looked for a sport weight sock pattern and kind of gone from the stitch count on that. I think that's what I did. I think I just went on Ravelry and looked for a sport weight sock pattern and took the stitch count from that. But rather than figure out what I would need for a heel flap and gusset, I just decided to go with the afterthought heel, and it does fit just fine. The only other kind of modification that I had to make was I did a normally with the toe decrease, I'll do decrease row, knit an even row, decrease row, knit an even row, and so on until you get to your wedge shaped toe. So for about half of this toe, I knit 2 even rows in between the decrease rows, just to kind of give it a little more height. So yeah, I am super, super pleased with these. Like I said, there's a lot of spinning that I would love to be doing right now, but I'm just busy with other things at the moment. So I believe these should be finished the next time that you guys see them. So this is going to be some more sock talk here real quick. So I don't really have a ton to show here, but I did finally pull Jason's socks back out and I did like 3 rows on them. But the reason that I wanted to bring these back up is I pulled out the first pair that I made for him last year because I wanted to measure them to see how much farther I had to go when I noticed womp womp. So I guess I'm going to learn how to darn socks. And this seems kind of like a weird place for there to be a hole in the sock. So I don't actually think that this hole occurred when he was wearing them. I think what happened is we have a wicker hamper and there's supposed to be a liner on the inside of it, but I don't know where the liner is. It's one of those things that, you know, disappeared when we moved, and I have yet to place my finger on it since then. So I think these must have gotten snagged on the inside of that. And yeah, so I'm going to be learning how to darn his socks. While I love him, I don't know that I'm going to be knitting very many more of his pairs out of super expensive self-striping yarn. He is most definitely going to keep getting the cheap commercial yarns from here on out. But my second sock tale of minor woe, I won't call it woe. So I showed these to you guys last time. These are the socks that I'm knitting out of one of my fall colorways. This is called Plumpkin Spice. I am currently sold out of sock sets right now on this colorway, but I'm working on dyeing up some more. Actually, I did dye up some more, but they didn't come out right. So they will also be in the shop as oopsies here in the near future. But I had started these socks and I haven't really gotten much more progress on them. I was actually getting ready to rip them back because I wasn't really following a pattern. I just decided that I wanted seed stitch on the front of them. However, seed stitch tends to have a shorter row gauge than the stockinette that I'm doing on the back of the leg. So yeah, I just decided that I'm going to go ahead and rip back on these, and I really wanted the seed stitch texture. It's just something that I've always loved, but I'm not finding a ton of sock patterns with that on the leg. I guess I could do seed stitch on the entire thing, but I don't know. I think I'm just going to rip back and do the Hermione's Everyday Sock pattern. I just wanted to share with you guys, unless you know of some kind of workaround, or, you know, at first I kind of thought maybe I could finagle some kind of short row system, but I don't know. That seems like way more fuss than what it's worth to just kind of rip these out and start over again. So yeah, that is my second kind of sock mini fail. So I also wanted to mention the knit along that Naomi and I are running. We are calling it the Steek Along 2020. So you can follow along using that hashtag on Instagram, or we do have a joint Ravelry group called the Curated Felicity group. And there's a thread in there for chatter and finished objects as well. But this is my Woodlark shawl that I'm knitting as part of this knit along. And as you guys can see, I have finally gotten into some of the color work on this. So last time I think I was right here before this first section. I've gotten through the first two sections of color work. So this is the shawl kind of folded in half. That's the center spine. And then these are the steek stitches that you cut up here at the top of the shawl. So yeah, this is by Larka, who is from the FiberTales podcast, and it's a really beautiful pattern. I will say it is not the most simple pattern in the world. It definitely requires some mental energy, some focus when you're knitting on it. Sometimes that's kind of nice though. I am actually really looking forward to diving into this and getting back into something a little bit more stimulating. It's been a lot of vanilla knitting for me lately, which is fine. That's usually what I prefer, but I am looking forward to doing a little bit more color work. So I'm using some yarn that I dyed up that I have called Putty in my Highland wool base. So this is some La Bien Aimée in her Winterfell colorway on the Retrosaria base. So yeah, I think this is going to be really lovely and something that I'm looking forward to getting a lot of wear out of this winter, if I ever get to finishing it. And for those of you who don't know, steeking is when you intentionally cut your knitting. It's a way of making color work a little bit easier for when you want a flat piece of knitting. You knit it in the round and then cut it so that you wind up with your flat piece of knitting. So yeah, generally you want to use non-superwash wool for that. And I am looking forward to doing my first steeks here. I think that this is something that I'm really going to dive into once I have advent calendars off my plate. So that's it for knitting. I don't even have any new spinning to show you guys. I really want to get back into my Jupiter crop spin and again, maybe spin another skein or two of some sock yarn up. but I kind of feel like that needs to wait until once I get advent calendars out the door. I apologize if you feel like those get brought up all the time, but the end is near. I have finished dyeing everything, and I am just beating up the last of the stitch markers that go in those, and then assembling them all together will be happening. I'm doing my best to get them out before October 18th because that's when the post office raises rates again. So fingers crossed. In the meantime, however, while I had the dye pots out, I did dye up some mini skein sets that are going to be in the shop here soon. So normally when I am done dyeing, I do a lot of speckling, and I kind of keep a jar of water that I like to rinse my utensils in between colors. And at the end of a dye day, I will usually just pop a mini or two into that water to soak up the extra dye, and I call those rinse waters. Well, I had a couple of them laying around, and I was like, they kind of look like they would work well together. So I just decided to go ahead and dye up a few intentional colors to go with them. And I have this beautiful jewel tone mini set, rainbow mini set from some of those rinse waters, and then some that I intentionally dyed up. So I really love how these turned out. They're way outside of my normal wheelhouse for colors, but I think that they're just beautiful, rich, kind of autumnal tones. So I'll have a couple of these mini sets in the shop. And then speaking of autumn, I don't know if I'm going to get these in the right order. I have really just been loving the kind of color palette of the Plumpkin Spice colorway that I dyed up, and I decided to kind of interpret that into a mini skein set as well. So I haven't named these or decided what I'm going to call them yet, but I think that these are also really beautiful. And I'll have a couple of these kind of autumn tones, autumn colorways, fall colorways, I don't know. So I'll have a couple of these kind of fall mini sets in the shop as well. All right, friends, that does it from me. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, all that jazz. I will see you guys again in a few weeks with some more knitting, hopefully. And I hope that you guys are having a lovely fall. Bye.